The laughter in courtroom 304 wasn't just cruel, it was deafening. It bounced off the mahogany walls, fueled by the arrogant smirk of a man who thought he had won. Liam Sterling, the city's most celebrated tech CEO, stood tall adjusting his silk tie while his lawyer openly mocked the woman sitting across from them. They called her a leech, a gold digger, a nobody who deserved nothing but the clothes on her back. Lana sat there head bowed, clutching a frayed purse, listening to them dismantle her dignity piece by piece. They thought her silence was defeat. They thought her trembling hands were fear. But they were wrong. Dead wrong. Because in exactly 5 minutes the doors to this courtroom are going to open and a single piece of paper is going to turn Liam's empire into dust. They mocked the ex-wife, not knowing she owns the very ground they stand on. The air in the Superior Court of Manhattan smelled of stale coffee and expensive cologne, specifically Santal 33, the scent Liam had worn every day since his company Sterling Dynamics went public. Lana adjusted her glasses, looking down at her hands. They were dry, unmanicured, resting on the cheap laminate of the plaintiff's table. To her left sat Mr. Henderson, a court-appointed lawyer, who looked like he hadn't slept in a week. He was shuffling papers, nervously, already defeated. Across the aisle, it was a different world. Liam sat like a king on a throne, flanked by a team of 3 attorneys from Blackwood & Associates, the most shark-infested firm in the city. Leading the pack was Jessica Thorne, a woman with a smile sharp enough to cut glass. She was Liam's lead counsel, and rumor had it, she was also the reason Lana was sleeping alone in a studio apartment in Queens. "Your Honor." Jessica's voice rang out crisp and confident. "We have offered Ms. Vance a very generous settlement, $10,000 and the 2018 Honda Civic. Considering she contributed absolutely nothing to the success of Sterling Dynamics, we believe this is more than fair. In fact, it's charity." A ripple of snickers moved through the gallery. Liam didn't laugh, but the corner of his lip twitched upward. He didn't even look at Lana. To him, she was already part of his past, a stain he was paying to remove. "Ms. Vance." Judge Harrison peered over his spectacles. He was an old man tired of domestic squabbles. "Your husband's net worth is estimated at $50 million. However, his counsel argues that the prenuptial agreement you signed on a napkin apparently waives your right to his business assets. Do you have anything to say?" Mr. Henderson stood up, his voice shaking. "Your Honor, my client supported Mr. Sterling for 5 years while he built his code. She worked double shifts at a diner. She paid the rent. She bought the servers." Jessica Thorne laughed. It was a cold, calculated sound. "Objection, Your Honor. Irrelevant. Paying for groceries does not equate to corporate equity. Lana Vance was a waitress. Liam Sterling is a visionary. Let's not confuse support with investment. She was a passenger. He was driving the car. And now the ride is over." Liam leaned forward, finally speaking. His voice was smooth, the voice that charmed investors and board members. "Lana, take the 10 grand. Honestly, it's more money than you've ever seen in your life. Don't embarrass yourself further." Lana looked up. Her eyes were dry. She remembered the nights she stayed up holding ice packs to his head when the stress migraines hit him. She remembered selling her grandmother's ring to pay for the patent filing fees on his first algorithm. She remembered him crying in her lap, promising that when we make it, you'll never work again. "I don't want the money, Liam," Lana said softly. Her voice was barely a whisper, but the room went quiet. "Then what do you want?" Liam scoffed, checking his Rolex. "Half my company. My house, my reputation." "No," Lana said. She reached into her frayed purse. She didn't pull out a tissue. She didn't pull out a phone. She pulled out a sleek black envelope with a gold wax seal, the seal of the Vanguard Trust. "I just want you to admit," she said, her voice gaining a strange, steady strength, "that you didn't build Sterling Dynamics alone." Liam rolled his eyes. "Here we go. The emotional plea. Judge, can we wrap this up? I have a board meeting at 2. "You don't have a board meeting at 2, Liam," Lana said, standing up. Jessica Thorne stepped in front of Liam, shielding him. Is this a threat? No, Lana said. It's a notification. To understand why the room was about to freeze, you have to understand who Lana Vance really was. Or rather, who Liam thought she was. 6 years ago, Liam had met her in a small, dusty library in Brooklyn. He was a struggling coder with a laptop that overheated every hour. She was the quiet girl, shelving books, wearing oversized sweaters and thick glasses. He assumed she was simple, unambitious. A safe choice for a man who needed a mother figure, not a partner. He courted her because she was convenient. She cooked, she cleaned, she listened to his ramblings about blockchain and AI integration. When he needed money for the initial servers, she found some savings. When he needed a legal structure for the LLC, she asked a friend to help with the paperwork. Liam never asked where the money came from. He never asked who the friend was. He was too busy falling in love with his own reflection. As Sterling Dynamics grew, Liam changed. The sweet, desperate coder became the titan of industry. He stopped coming home for dinner. He started hiding his phone. Then came Jessica Thorne, flashy, brilliant, and ruthless. Everything Lana wasn't. When Liam served Lana the divorce papers, he did it via text message. It's not working. You don't fit in my world anymore. My lawyers will handle the rest. He thought he was discarding a waitress. He didn't know he was discarding the architect. Back in the courtroom, the atmosphere shifted. The black envelope in Lana's hand seemed to suck the light out of the room. Ms. Vance, the judge said, looking at the envelope. What is that? Evidence, Your Honor, Lana said. Exhibit A. Jessica Thorne snatched the envelope from Lana's hand before the bailiff could take it. I object. This wasn't submitted in discovery. We don't know what kind of forged nonsense this is. Open it, Lana challenged. Her posture changed. The slump in her shoulders vanished. She stood straight, her chin high. The meek librarian was gone. Jessica hesitated. She looked at Liam. Liam shrugged, looking bored. Go ahead. Let her play her little game. Jessica ripped the seal. She pulled out a single document. It wasn't a handwritten letter. It wasn't a receipt from a diner. It was a shareholder proxy statement. Jessica's eyes scanned the document. Her smirk faltered. Her brow furrowed. She read the header, then the signature line. The color drained from her face so fast it looked like she might faint. What is it? Liam asked, annoyed by the silence. Is it a love letter? A poem? Jessica didn't answer. Her hands were trembling. She looked at Lana, really looked at her for the first time. She saw the heavy frames of Lana's glasses, the simple dress, and she realized it was a costume. Jessica, Liam snapped. Speak. Jessica turned to the judge, her voice a dry rasp. Your Honor, I need a recess. Denied, Judge Harrison said, leaning forward, intrigued. Read the document, Ms. Thorne. I can't, she stammered. Read it, Liam yelled, grabbing the paper from her hand. Liam looked down. The text was standard legal jargon, but the names made his heart stop. This certifies that the primary ownership of the intellectual property known as the Sterling algorithm is held by the Orion Group. Liam laughed nervously. So what, we license our tech from Orion. Everyone knows that. It's a holding company in the Caymans. What does this have to do with you? Lana stepped out from behind the plaintiff's table. She walked toward the center of the aisle. Read the signature at the bottom, Liam. Who is the CEO of the Orion Group? Liam's eyes darted to the bottom of the page. Signed CEO and founder E. Vance. The silence that followed was heavy like the air before a tornado touches down. E. Vance, Liam whispered. He looked up, his face pale. Lana Vance. You have the same last name as the CEO. The gallery was confused, but Lana smiled. It wasn't a sweet smile. It was the smile of a predator who had finally sprung the trap. I don't just have the same name, Liam, she said, taking off her glasses and tossing them onto the defense table. They clattered loudly next to his expensive briefcase. I am the Orion Group. That's impossible, Liam shouted, standing up so fast his chair flew back. You're a waitress. You shelve books for minimum wage. I shelve books because I like the quiet, Lana said calmly. And I worked at the diner to stay grounded. But my grandfather was Marcus Vance, the founder of Vance Steel. When he died, he left me everything. Billions, Liam. Not millions. Billions. The word hung in the air. I didn't want a husband who loved me for my money. Lana continued, her voice echoing in the stunned courtroom. So I created a test. I found a struggling, ambitious man. I supported him. I funded his little company through shell corporations so he wouldn't know it was me. I wanted to see if you could build something real. I wanted to see if you were a good man. She took a step closer to him. Liam sank back, leaning against the table for support. You failed the test, Liam. The silence in the courtroom was broken by the buzzing of a phone. Then another. Then 3 more. It started in the gallery, reporters checking their notifications. Then it moved to the defense table. Liam's phone, face down on the mahogany, began to vibrate so violently it rattled against the wood. Turn that off. Judge Harrison barked, though he was leaning forward, his eyes darting between Lana and the stunned tech CEO. Liam ignored the judge. He stared at Lana, his face a mask of disbelief and rising panic. You're lying. He spat, though his voice lacked its usual venom. Vance Steel is old money, industrial. They don't do tech, and they certainly don't own my algorithm. You really didn't read the contracts, did you, Liam? Lana asked, walking back to her table and picking up her purse. She didn't look like a victim anymore. She looked like a CEO addressing an unruly subordinate. You were so eager to get the funding, so desperate to launch before the Q4 earnings, that you signed the angel investor agreement without vetting the source. Lana turned to the gallery, addressing the room at large. The Orion Group didn't just fund Sterling Dynamics. We leased the core IP to Sterling Dynamics. It's a standard licensing agreement, renewable every year, at the sole discretion of the licensor. Jessica Thorne, the shark lawyer, seemed to wake up from her trance. She frantically began digging through her case files, papers flying everywhere. She found the binder labeled IP and Assets. She flipped to the back, her manicured fingers tearing a page in her haste. Clause 14, Section B, Lana said helpfully, not even looking at Jessica. The Moral Turpitude and Stability Clause. Jessica found it. Her lips moved silently as she read. Her face went gray. What? Liam demanded, grabbing her arm. What does it say? Jessica looked up at him, her eyes wide with horror. It says that if the primary operator of the licensee company, that's you, Liam, engages in conduct that damages the reputation of the licensor, or enters into legal disputes regarding the assets. Spit it out, Liam screamed. They can revoke the license, Jessica whispered. Immediately, without notice. Liam froze. So I lose a license. I'll write new code. I'm the genius here. I built this. Lana checked her own watch, a cheap plastic digital watch that looked laughable on the wrist of a billionaire. Actually, Liam, you have about 30 seconds. 30 seconds for what? For the market to react, Lana said. I initiated the revocation order 10 minutes ago, right before I walked into this room. The SEC filing just hit the wire. As if on cue, a reporter in the back row gasped. Oh my God. Sterling Dynamics stock just halted trading. What? Liam spun around. It's plummeting, another voice cried out from the gallery. Down 40% in pre-market. The board of directors is issuing an emergency statement. Liam grabbed his vibrating phone. He looked at the screen. It was a text from his CFO. They pulled the tech. The servers are locked. We are dark. Liam, what did you do? You shut me down, Liam whispered, looking at Lana. You killed my company. It was never your company, Lana said coldly. It was a loan, and you defaulted on the payments the moment you decided to humiliate me in public. You wanted to mock the waitress. Well, the waitress just fired you. Liam's legs gave out. He collapsed back into his chair, staring at the ceiling. The empire he had strutted around in for 5 years had evaporated in the span of a 10-minute court hearing. But Lana wasn't done. Your Honor, she said, turning to Judge Harrison, since the defendant's primary asset, his company, is now effectively worthless, I would like to amend my settlement request. Judge Harrison, who looked like he was watching the best drama of his life, nodded slowly. Proceed, Ms. Vance. I don't want the $10,000, she said. And I don't want the Honda. I want the house in the Hamptons. I want the penthouse in Tribeca. And I want the patent for the Sterling Drive. You can't have the patent, Liam shrieked, jumping up again. That's mine. It's in my name. Lana smiled. Is it? The courtroom was in chaos. The bailiff was trying to restore order, but the gallery was buzzing with the revelation. Live streams were starting up on phones. The hashtag #WaitressBillionaire was already trending on Twitter. Liam stood panting, his tie, crooked sweat beading on his forehead. He turned to Jessica Thorne. Do something, fix this, sue her for breach of contract, for sabotage. Jessica stood slowly. She smoothed her skirt. She looked at the ruin of the man beside her, a man who 5 minutes ago was the golden boy of New York, and now was a liability that could sink her entire firm. Jessica Thorne was a survivor. She didn't get to be a partner at Blackwood & Associates by backing losers. Mr. Sterling, Jessica said loudly, her voice projecting to the back of the room. I am afraid I can no longer represent you. Liam stared at her. What? You failed to disclose material facts regarding the ownership of your company's IP. Jessica said, her tone icy and professional. You lied to counsel. That is a breach of our retainer agreement. You're leaving me, Liam hissed. Now, after everything. I'm not just leaving you, Liam, Jessica said, stepping away from him as if he were contagious. I'm advising the court that I was unaware of my client's fraudulent activities. She turned to Lana. Ms. Vance, Mrs. Vance, I would like to go on record stating that my firm had no knowledge of the deception Mr. Sterling orchestrated against your trust. Lana raised an eyebrow. Nicely done, Jessica. Jumping off the ship before it hits the bottom. But you're not swimming away that easily. Lana walked over to the defense table and picked up a stack of documents, the motions Jessica had filed to mock Lana earlier. You called me a leech in these filings, Jessica, Lana said. You signed this affidavit stating that I contributed zero value to the marriage. Did you verify that? Or did you just take your boyfriend's word for it? Jessica flinched at the word boyfriend. I was acting on client instructions, Jessica stammered. Well, here is a new instruction, Lana said. The Orion Group is the largest retainer client for Blackwood & Associates. We pay your firm about $6 million a year in legal fees for our various holdings. Jessica's mouth fell open. She hadn't known. The partners hadn't known. The complex web of shell companies meant they never realized the quiet woman being bullied in courtroom 304 was actually their biggest paycheck. If you walk out of this courtroom without fixing this, Lana threatened softly, I will pull every dime. Your firm will lose 30% of its billing overnight, and I will personally name you as the reason why. Jessica looked trapped. She looked from Liam broke ruined to Lana powerful, vindictive. Jessica sat back down, but not next to Liam. She pulled her chair a few feet away, isolating him completely. What do you want me to do? Jessica asked, her head bowed. Sit there and be quiet, Lana commanded. She turned back to Liam. Now about that patent you claim is yours, the Sterling Drive, the revolutionary AI compression tool. You said you wrote the code in our basement in 2019. I did? Liam insisted, though he looked like a cornered animal. I worked nights. You saw me. I saw you staring at a screen, Lana corrected. I saw you typing, but I also saw the emails you thought you deleted. Liam's face went white. You're a good salesman, Liam. You're a great presenter, but you're a mediocre coder at best, Lana said. You didn't write the Sterling Drive. You stole it. Objection, Liam shouted, acting as his own lawyer now. Hearsay. You have no proof. Lana turned toward the heavy oak doors at the back of the courtroom. "I don't need hearsay. I brought the author." The doors swung open. A hush fell over the room. The man who walked in didn't look like a corporate player. He wore a faded hoodie, cargo pants, and had messy hair that hadn't seen a comb in days. He walked with a limp, using a cane. He looked tired, broken, but when Liam saw him, he looked like he had seen a ghost. "Silas?" Liam whispered. Silas Archer. The name meant nothing to the press in the gallery, but in the underground coding forums, Silas was a legend, a prodigy, and once upon a time, Liam's college roommate. Silas walked slowly down the aisle. He didn't look at the judge. He didn't look at the cameras. He kept his eyes locked on Liam. "Hello, Liam," Silas said, his voice raspy. "Nice suit." "What is he doing here?" Liam demanded, his voice cracking. "Get him out. He's mentally unstable. He's a drug addict." "He's sober," Lana said, stepping to Silas's side and placing a supportive hand on his shoulder. "And he's been working as the chief technical officer for Orion Group for the last 2 years. While you were partying in Ibiza, Silas was rebuilding his life and documenting his code." Lana turned to the judge. "Your Honor, 6 years ago, Liam Sterling and Silas Archer were working on a project together. Silas wrote the kernel, the core engine. Liam was supposed to handle the interface. He had a breakdown," Liam shouted. "He went crazy. I had to take over. I saved the project." "You stole the hard drive while he was in rehab," Silas said quietly. It was the first time he had spoken to the court. "You checked me into the clinic, Liam. You told me you'd handle everything. You told me to rest. And when I came out, my laptop was gone. My backups were wiped. And Sterling Dynamics had just launched." "You couldn't prove it," Liam yelled. "It's my word against yours, and no one believes a junkie." "That was true then," Lana interjected. "But you made a mistake, Liam. You were lazy. You didn't rewrite the core code because you didn't understand it. You just built a pretty interface on top of it." Lana pulled a flash drive from her purse. "Silas leaves a digital signature in everything he writes. A watermark, hidden in the binary." She handed the drive to the court clerk. "If you run a forensic scan on the Sterling drive source code, you will find a repeating sequence of hex code in the root directory." "What does the sequence say?" Judge Harrison asked, fascinated. Silas answered. A small, sad smile touched his lips. "It translates to text. It says for Lana, the only one who believed." The courtroom gasped. Liam froze. He remembered now. Years ago, back when they were all friends, Silas had had a crush on Lana. He had admired her kindness. He had dedicated the code to her as a secret gesture, never thinking it would see the light of day. "You stole a love letter," Lana said, her voice filled with disgust. "You stole his work, his future, and you built your empire on a code dedicated to me." Liam looked around the room. The walls were closing in. Jessica wouldn't look at him. The reporters were typing furiously. The judge looked ready to issue an arrest warrant. "It doesn't matter," Liam screamed, unraveling completely. "I made it famous. I sold it. It's worth millions. You can't take it away just because of some hidden text." "I can," Lana said, "because Silas Archer assigned the copyright to the Orion Group yesterday morning." She dropped the final bombshell. "You've been selling stolen property for 5 years, Liam. That's not just a civil matter. That's federal wire fraud. That's IP theft. And since the valuation was over $50 million, Lana looked at the back of the room where 2 men in dark suits had just quietly entered. They weren't lawyers. They were FBI agents. "I think your next meeting isn't with a board of directors," Lana said. "It's with them." The atmosphere in courtroom 304 shifted from stunned silence to a suffocating dread. The air pressure seemed to drop the way it does moments before a hurricane makes landfall. The heavy oak doors at the back of the room didn't just open. They swung wide with a mournful, heavy creak that sounded like a coffin lid being lifted. 2 men entered. They moved with a terrifying lack of urgency. They wore dark, ill-fitting suits that cost a fraction of what Liam's bespoke Italian wool suit cost. But they carried an authority that money couldn't buy. These weren't beat cops. They weren't security guards. They were federal agents from the Bureau's white-collar crimes division, and they walked down the center aisle with the synchronized heavy cadence of executioners. Liam Sterling, the man who had walked into this building believing he was a god among insects, felt the blood drain from his extremities. His fingertips went numb. The expensive mahogany table he was leaning against suddenly felt like the only thing keeping him upright. His vision blurred at the edges, tunneling down to the shiny gold badges clipped to the agents' belts. He turned to his right, his neck snapping around so fast it cracked. "Jessica," he hissed, his voice trembling with a frequency that bordered on hysteria. "Jessica, who are they? Why are they here? Fix this." Jessica Thorne, the woman who had spent the last hour meticulously dismantling Lana's character, was no longer looking at Liam with admiration or even professional courtesy. She was looking at him the way a hiker looks at a bear trap they just narrowly stepped over. She was frantically shoving documents into her leather briefcase. Papers crumpled. Her manicured nails scratched against the table. She wasn't organizing. She was evacuating. "Jessica!" Liam grabbed her wrist. His grip was wet with clammy sweat. "I am talking to you, object. Tell the judge this is a disruption. Tell them I'm Liam Sterling." Jessica ripped her arm away with a violence that shocked the gallery. "Let go of me," she snarled, her voice dropping to a venomous whisper that carried perfectly to the front row. "You toxic, arrogant fool. Do you have any idea what you've done?" "I haven't done anything," Liam pleaded, his eyes darting between the approaching agents and his lawyer. "It's a misunderstanding. It's Lana. She's hysterical. She's paying them off." "Paying off the FBI?" Jessica let out a short, sharp laugh that sounded like glass breaking. "You wire transferred $12 million of licensing fees into a personal offshore account, Liam. I saw the discovery file Lana's lawyer just handed the clerk. You didn't just steal the code, you stole the revenue stream, and you signed my name on the compliance forms." Liam froze. The color washed out of his face completely, leaving him looking like a wax figure left too close to a fire. I can explain that. It was a temporary holding strategy. It was a felony." Jessica spat, snapping her briefcase shut. She stood up, smoothing her skirt, creating a physical and symbolic distance between them. "I am not going down for your hubris. I am not losing my license because you decided to play CEO with stolen toys." "You can't leave me!" Liam shrieked, his voice cracking, stripping away the last veneer of his composure. "I pay your firm $6 million a year. You work for me." Jessica turned to him one last time. Her eyes were cold, dead things. "I resigned 5 minutes ago, Mr. Sterling, right around the time your wife revealed she owns the firm that pays my retainer. I don't work for you. Technically, I work for her." She gestured toward Lana, then stepped away from the defense table, leaving Liam standing alone on an island of impending doom. The lead agent, a man with a face carved from granite and eyes that had seen 1,000 men like Liam beg, stopped 3 feet away. The silence in the room was absolute. Even the court stenographer had stopped typing, her hands hovering over the key's mouth slightly open. "Liam Christopher Sterling," the agent said. His voice was a baritone rumble devoid of emotion. It wasn't a question. It was a confirmation of a target acquired. "There must be a mistake," Liam stammered, holding his hands up, palms out in a pathetic gesture of surrender. "My name is—" "Yes, that's me, but look. Officer, agent, I'm in the middle of a civil proceeding. You can't just interrupt a superior court hearing. Judge, tell them." Liam looked to the bench, desperate for an ally. Judge Harrison looked down over his spectacles. The old judge didn't look angry. He looked disappointed. He slowly placed his gavel down, folding his hands. He gave the agent a subtle nod. The gavel had fallen silent. The law had spoken. "Mr. Sterling," the agent continued, unclipping a pair of heavy steel handcuffs from his belt. The metallic clink echoed off the high ceiling. "You are under arrest for 18 counts of federal wire fraud, aggravated identity theft, and theft of trade secrets involving the Orion Group." "The Orion Group doesn't exist," Liam yelled, backing away until his legs hit the chair behind him. He stumbled, catching himself. "It's a shell. It's her. It's just her." He pointed a shaking finger at Lana. "She's doing this. She's the villain here. She deceived me." The second agent moved in. He didn't ask nicely. He grabbed Liam's left arm and twisted it behind his back with practiced efficiency. Liam yelped a high-pitched sound of pain and indignity that shattered the image of the stoic tech titan forever. "Stop, you're hurting me! This is a $3,000 suit!" Liam cried out as his chest was slammed onto the defense table, his cheek pressed against the cold wood where he had smirked so confidently only an hour ago. Click, click, click. The sound of the ratchets tightening was the loudest thing in the world. It was the sound of a career ending. It was the sound of a life imploding. Liam gasped for air, his face flushed red against the table. The agents hauled him upright. His hair was disheveled, hanging in his eyes. His tie was crooked. He looked wild, desperate, and small. And then he saw her. Lana was standing by the plaintiff's table. She hadn't moved. She hadn't smiled. She was watching him with an expression of profound, terrifying calm. She held her cheap purse in one hand, her posture straight, unyielding. The reporters in the gallery were on their feet now, phones raised high, capturing the downfall of the king of code in 4K resolution. The flashbulbs popped like strobes, blinding Liam, disorienting him. "Lana!" Liam whispered, the fight draining out of him. He realized with a sickening lurch of his stomach that the agents weren't stopping. They were pushing him toward the exit. This was real. "Lana!" he shouted, digging his heels into the carpet. "Lana, please tell them to stop. We can work this out." Lana took one step forward. The agents paused, sensing the gravity of the moment. They allowed the condemned man his final words. "Work this out?" Lana asked softly. Her voice wasn't loud, but in the acoustic perfection of the courtroom it carried to every corner. "Like you worked out our marriage. Like you worked out my value. I was stressed." Liam babbled, tears mixing with the sweat on his face. "I did it for us. I wanted to build an empire for us. I'll give it all back, Lana. I swear. I'll sign over the company. I'll give you the house in the Hamptons. I'll give you the penthouse. Just make a call. You have the power. You said you're the CEO. Stop this." Lana walked closer, entering his personal space for the first time in months. She smelled of vanilla and old books, the scent he used to love before he decided he preferred the smell of money. She looked him in the eye, and Liam saw something that terrified him more than the handcuffs. He saw pity. "You can't give me the house, Liam," she said, her voice steady and clear. "You haven't paid the mortgage in 8 months. You leveraged the deed to pay for your marketing campaign in Tokyo. The bank was foreclosing on Tuesday." Liam's jaw dropped. How do you know that?" "Because I bought the note from the bank this morning," Lana revealed. "I own the debt, Liam. I own the penthouse. I own the servers. I own the chair you were sitting in. I didn't want you to give them to me. I wanted to take them back to show you that you never really owned anything at all." "Why?" Liam sobbed, his knees buckling, the agents holding him up by his armpits. "Why did you let it go this far? Why play this game? You could have told me you were rich. We could have ruled the world together." "I didn't want to rule the world," Lana said, her voice trembling with a sudden surge of emotion she quickly suppressed. "I just wanted a husband who came home for dinner. I wanted a partner, not a project." She leaned in her whisper, cutting him like a scalpel. 3 years ago on our anniversary, I waited for you at that little Italian restaurant where we had our first date. I had the papers with me. I was going to tell you about the trust. I was going to fund your dream legitimately." Liam blinked, a vague memory surfacing through the panic. I had a meeting." You were at a launch party with Jessica, Lana corrected him. I saw the photos, and when you came home at 3:00 a.m., smelling of champagne and her perfume, you looked at me in my pajamas waiting on the couch, and you asked me why I hadn't ironed your shirt for the morning. A gasp rippled through the gallery. That was the moment, Liam, Lana said, stepping back. That was the moment the Orion Group decided to diversify its assets. I realized I was investing in a sinking ship. She turned her back on him. The gesture was final. It was absolute. Take him, she said to the agents. Lana. No, I love you. Liam wailed a desperate guttural sound that was more fear than affection. I love you. Don't let them take me. Lana didn't turn around. She stared at the empty judge's bench, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. You don't love me, Liam. You love the reflection of yourself you saw in my eyes, but the mirror is broken now, and you're just ugly. The agent shoved Liam forward. He kicked and screamed a tantrum of a child who had never been told no, now facing the ultimate rejection. The doors swung open and the flashes of the press photographers in the hallway exploded like a thunderstorm. I am Liam Sterling, he screamed as he was dragged into the corridor. I am a visionary. You can't do this. And then the doors swung shut, cutting off his screams instantly. The silence that rushed back into courtroom 304 was heavy, profound, and final. Jessica Thorne stood by the wall, clutching her briefcase, looking at the floor, unable to meet anyone's gaze. Judge Harrison cleared his throat. The sound was incredibly loud. He looked at the empty defense table, then at the stunned gallery, and finally at the woman standing alone in the center of the aisle. Mrs. Vance, the judge said, his tone carrying a new weight of respect. It appears the defendant is unavailable to continue these proceedings. Lana took a deep breath, adjusting her glasses. She looked up at the judge. The meekness was gone. The waitress was gone. I believe we were discussing the settlement, Your Honor, she said calmly. Indeed, the judge nodded. Given the circumstances and the federal indictment, I am prepared to issue a default judgment in your favor regarding the assets. Grant the divorce, Your Honor, Lana said, picking up her frayed purse. Full separation of assets. As for the settlement he offered, she paused, looking at the spot where Liam had stood. Award him the $10,000, she said. He's going to need it for the commissary. I hear the ramen noodles in federal prison are getting expensive. The judge banged his gavel. It was a sharp, decisive crack that signaled the end of an era. So ordered. 6 months later. The autumn rain in Manhattan usually washed the city in shades of gray, turning the streets into slick monochromatic rivers. But from the 94th floor of the newly christened Orion Tower, the rain looked different. It looked like a cleansing. Lana Vance stood by the floor-to-ceiling glass, her hands wrapped around a ceramic mug of tea. She wasn't wearing the frayed cardigans of her past, nor was she wearing the stiff armor-like power suits that Jessica Thorne used to favor. She wore a soft cream-colored cashmere sweater and dark denim jeans. It was the uniform of a woman who no longer needed to shout to be heard. The office behind her was a stark contrast to the cold, sterile glass box that Liam had occupied at Sterling Dynamics. Liam's office had been a shrine to his own ego-modern art, that he didn't understand, uncomfortable chairs designed to make visitors feel small and a desk the size of a landing strip. Lana's office was a sanctuary. The walls were lined with warm oak bookshelves, filled not just with tech manuals, but with novels, history books, and the poetry she used to read during her breaks at the diner. There were soft armchairs for brainstorming, a whiteboard covered in colorful diagrams, and the smell of fresh espresso and old paper hung in the air. The beta test results are in, a voice called out, breaking her reverie. Lana turned. Silas Archer sat at a large communal work table in the center of the room. He looked like a man reborn. The hollow cheeks and frantic energy of his addiction were gone, replaced by a healthy fullness and a calm, focused intensity. He was clean-shaven, his hair trimmed, wearing a crisp button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled up. He was typing on a mechanical keyboard, the rhythmic clack, 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 a soothing heartbeat in the room. "And?" Lana asked, walking over to join him. "Did the compression hold?" Silas grinned, spinning his monitor around. "Hold, Lana, it didn't just hold, it sang. We're seeing data transfer speeds 300% faster than the buggy version Liam tried to rush to market. The error rate is 0.001%. It's perfect." Lana looked at the code scrolling on the screen. It was beautiful in its own way, a symphony of logic that Silas had written and Liam had tried to steal. "We launch on Monday," Lana said, a small smile touching her lips. "The Archer protocol goes live." Silas flinched slightly at the name. "I still think we should call it the Vance Drive." "No," Lana said firmly. "You wrote it. You own it. I just built the house so it could live safely. That was the deal." Silas shook his head, looking at her with profound gratitude. "You did a lot more than build a house, boss. You resurrected the dead." He picked up a tablet. "Speaking of the dead, legal sent up the final summary on the Sterling Dynamics liquidation. Do you want the good news or the satisfying news?" "Give me the satisfying news first," Lana said, sitting on the edge of the table. "The class action lawsuit from the shareholders was settled this morning," Silas read, scrolling through the document. "The court authorized the seizure of all of Liam's personal assets to cover the settlement gap. The Hamptons house went for $4 million. The Porsche was auctioned for parts because apparently he hadn't serviced it in 2 years, and his collection of vintage watches turned out to be mostly high-end knockoffs." Lana laughed, a genuine hearty sound. Of course they were. Liam cared about the brand, not the movement. "And Liam?" Lana asked, her voice dropping a decibel. Silas hesitated, then tapped the screen to open a new file. "He's currently housed at the FCI Otisville Correctional Facility. He took the plea deal to avoid the maximum sentence for wire fraud. 5 years. Is he coping?" "Not exactly," Silas said. "My contact at the Bureau told me Liam has been assigned a work detail. He's not in the kitchen and he's not in the garden." "Where is he?" "The library," Silas said, the irony thick in his voice. "He spends 6 hours a day reshelving books. Apparently he hates it. He keeps telling the warden that he's a visionary and shouldn't be touching paper. The other inmates have started calling him Dewey Decimal." Lana closed her eyes for a second. She pictured Liam, the man who had mocked her for working in a library, now forced to serve his time in one. It was a poetic justice so precise it felt scripted. "He sent a letter," Silas added quietly, sliding a crumpled envelope across the table. "It came to the general mailroom. Security screened it." Lana looked at the envelope. The handwriting was jagged, desperate. "To Lana Vance, personal." She didn't pick it up. "What does it say?" "The usual." Silas sighed. "He blames his lawyers. He blames the market. He asks for money for the commissary because he doesn't like the brand of toothpaste they provide. He says he forgives you." "He forgives me?" Lana raised an eyebrow. "Delusion is a powerful drug," Silas said. "Do you want to read it?" Lana looked at the envelope for a long moment. She thought about the nights she had cried over this man. She thought about the sacrifices. Then she reached out, picked up the envelope, and walked over to the paper shredder in the corner of the room. She fed the unopened letter into the machine. The grinding noise was short and final. "No," she said. "I don't read fiction anymore." The intercom on her desk buzzed. "Ms. Vance." "You have a visitor in the lobby. She doesn't have an appointment, but she says it's urgent. A Ms. Jessica Thorne." Silas and Lana exchanged a look. "Thorne." Silas whistled. "That takes nerve." "Send her away," Silas said to the intercom. "No," Lana interjected. "Let her up, but tell her she has 5 minutes." When the elevator doors opened, the woman who stepped out was a shadow of the shark who had prowled courtroom 304. Jessica Thorne looked 10 years older. Her suit was wrinkled, her hair pulled back in a severe, messy bun. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a jittery, desperate energy. She stood in the doorway of Lana's office, clutching her purse with white knuckles. "Mrs. Vance," Jessica said, her voice raspy. "Thank you for seeing me." "It's Ms. Vance," Lana corrected, not standing up from behind her desk. She didn't offer Jessica a seat. "You have 4 minutes and 30 seconds, Jessica." Jessica swallowed hard. She looked around the opulent office, her eyes lingering on the view of the city, a view she used to think she owned. I wanted to apologize," Jessica began, the words tasting like ash in her mouth, "for my conduct in court. I was representing my client. I didn't know the full scope of the situation." "You called me a leech, Jessica," Lana said calmly. "You filed a motion to have me evicted from my apartment while the trial was ongoing. You weren't just representing a client. You were enjoying the cruelty." Jessica flinched. "I was under pressure. The firm, Blackwood and Associates, fired me, Lana, the day after the verdict. They scapegoated me. They said I failed due diligence." "You did," Lana pointed out. "I can't get a job," Jessica whispered, tears welling in her eyes. "I've applied to 50 firms. Even the ambulance chasers won't touch me. I have a mortgage. I have student loans. I heard you were hiring legal counsel for the Orion Group's expansion." The silence stretched out, painful and long. Silas looked at his shoes, uncomfortable with the raw desperation in the room. "You want a job?" Lana asked, leaning forward. "I am a good lawyer," Jessica pleaded. "I am ruthless. I know corporate law better than anyone. I can protect you. I can be an asset." Lana stood up and walked around the desk. She stopped right in front of Jessica. "You are a good lawyer, Jessica. That's true. But you're a bad person." Lana walked to the window. "I bought a building this morning. Did you hear?" Jessica blinked, confused by the change of subject. "No. I bought 140 West Street," Lana said. "The Blackwood building. Your old firm's headquarters." Jessica's mouth fell open. You bought the building." "I did. The partners at Blackwood were having cash flow problems after I pulled the Orion Group's retainer. They were desperate to sell. I got it for a steal." Lana turned back to Jessica. "I'm evicting them. All of them. The partners who fired you, they'll be packing boxes by Friday." For a second, a spark of hope lit up Jessica's eyes. A look of vindictive camaraderie. "You're kicking them out? That's amazing." "I'm turning the building into an incubator," Lana continued. "A free workspace for underprivileged coders, artists, and legal aid clinics. It's going to be a place where people help each other, not exploit each other." Lana looked Jessica up and down. "I don't need a ruthless lawyer, Jessica. I need builders. I need people who understand that power is a responsibility, not a weapon. You spent your whole career crushing people like me because you thought we were weak. You don't fit in my building." "Lana, please." Jessica sobbed, the dignity completely gone. "I have nothing." "You have your health," Lana said coldly. "And you have a law degree. Go use it. Go work as a public defender. Go help people who can't pay you $600 an hour. Learn what the law is actually for. Maybe in 5 years, if you've learned some humility, send me a resume, but not today." Lana pressed the button on her desk. "Security, please escort Ms. Thorne out. She's finished." Jessica stared at Lana, realizing there was no negotiation here. This wasn't a business deal. This was a moral judgment. She turned and walked to the elevator. Her shoulders slumped, defeated by the very integrity she had mocked. When the doors closed, Silas let out a long breath. That was intense. "It was necessary," Lana said, sitting back down. She didn't feel triumphant. She just felt clean. The toxicity was gone from her life. "So," Silas said, trying to lighten the mood, "you really bought the Blackwood building. Signed the papers an hour ago. And you're really kicking out the lawyers?" Every single one of them, Lana grinned. I'm keeping the receptionist, though. She was always nice to me when I dropped off Liam's lunch. Silas laughed, shaking his head. You're dangerous, you know that. I'm focused, Lana corrected. She checked her watch, a simple, elegant piece now, but still functional. It's 100 p.m. I'm starving. Sushi, Silas suggested. The place downstairs charges $50 for a tuna roll. Very billionaire chic. No, Lana said, grabbing her purse. I'm craving a burger. A burger. There's a diner in Queens, Lana said, her eyes softening. The Silver Spoon. It's where I worked when I met Liam. The manager, old Mr. Henderson, is still there. He keeps the grill running. You want to go back there? Silas asked, surprised. Won't it bring back bad memories? No, Lana said firmly. I'm not going back to relive the past. I'm going back to change someone's future. How so? There's a waitress there. Her name is Sarah. She's 22, single mom, working double shifts to pay for paralegal studies. She reminds me of, well, me. Lana pulled a checkbook out of her purse. I think the Orion Group needs a new scholarship fund, and I think Sarah just earned a very large tip. Silas smiled, grabbing his jacket. You're going to make her faint. I hope not, Lana said, walking toward the door. I need her to bring me extra fries first. They walked out of the office together, past the gleaming logo of the Orion Group, a constellation of stars connected by lines of light. They took the elevator down, not to the VIP garage, but to the street level. They walked out into the rain, but Lana didn't open an umbrella. She let the cool water hit her face. For years, she had walked these streets with her head down, afraid of being seen, afraid of being judged, afraid of not being enough. She had allowed a man to define her worth based on his own insecurities. She had played the role of the shadow so he could shine. But as she hailed a cab, stopping it with a confident wave of her hand, Lana Vance realized the truth that had been hidden in the code all along. The shadow doesn't disappear when the light gets brighter. The shadow proves the light is real. And now she was the light. She slid into the cab, Silas sliding in next to her. Where to, lady? The driver asked. Lana looked out the window at the skyline she now helped shape. She saw the buildings she owned, the networks she controlled, and the future she was building. Queens, Lana said, smiling. And step on it. I have a tip to deliver. The cab merged into the traffic, just one yellow car in a sea of thousands, carrying a woman who had mocked the world's expectations by simply being herself. The ex-wife, the waitress, the billionaire, the architect. And that is the story of Lana Vance. She proved that silence isn't weakness, and kindness isn't stupidity. Liam thought he could discard her like trash, but he forgot the most important rule of business: never underestimate the person who knows your secrets. What did you think of Lana's revenge? Was taking his company enough? Or should she have let him rot in jail for longer? And what about Jessica? Did she get what she deserved? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story of karma and justice, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss a new story. We drop new dramas every week. Thanks for watching, and remember, be careful who you step on your way up. You might meet them on your way down.